Ready? Play.
I want to ask you a couple of questions though regarding the US Open and the women's side right now. I presume that your three favorites are the obvious three favorites, and if that's the case, what order would you put them in? If New York was tomorrow?
It's tough, John. It's tough not
It's
to.
tough. I know we don't get easy questions on here, my friend. This isn't on the line tennis podcast where you can just ask yourself comfy questions.
Here's the two spanners in the works. Coco and Jess, the doubles pairing.
Mm-hmm.
Those two players are not just getting written off by me at the moment.
Okay.
I think Jess Pegula, the myth that she can't get past a quarterfinal, that there's something mental there that's stopping her getting over the line, that she's going to prove everybody wrong sooner rather than later. She's playing very tidy tennis, a lot of amazing returning, stuff that some players will just not be able to live with. I do think this could be our time, genuinely, to get to the semis, maybe at least. But I know what you're thinking, John. Does she beat one of those three players on her best day? I think she beats Iga on her best day. I don't think those performances have been fluke. She has a very
right on the hard court.
And she's had a very established game plan in both of those matches. She's really, I know she played Pegula last year at the US Open, Swiatek, and that was not an easy match. She's really established herself in each and every one of Iga's return games where other players cannot do the same. And that is a huge issue for Swiatek. So I honestly, if that matchup happens, I'm not just going Iga immediately. It depends how Jess has played up until that point, and I would be tempted to side with her in that matchup, right?
But your three favourites for the tournament are the three.
For that reason, John, against the defending champion, I want to put Pegula in over Rybakina.
Okay.
I'll have a little think about that and decide if that's something I want to say for sure.
7 days. All sorts of things going on, of course.
But you got to think about the players that can defeat the favourites for the tournament. And if Pegula's got a better chance than pretty much anybody else against Iga, bar Sabalenka on a good day, which she is having less of at the moment, then Pegula maybe has to go in the mix for me.
I know where you're coming from with Pegula. I don't disagree with anything you've said, but the reason I wouldn't rank her as highly as the big three, as they've maybe prematurely been described as, is that I just wonder. I completely agree with you. I don't think, despite some of the things I suggested during Wimbledon, that she's got a quarterfinal problem. I don't think she wakes up in the morning and it's a fourth round match and she feels confident, and so she wakes up and it's a quarterfinal at a slam and feels less confident. I just think that sometimes that's been her level. Each time she's gone out at a Grand Slam, she wasn't good enough to beat Azarenka as it was this year. She hasn't been good enough to beat Iga in New York in the past, and she wasn't good enough. I don't think I wasn't surprised, and I don't think either of us were surprised that she lost to Vondrousova this year at Wimbledon. So I don't think it's a psychological barrier. I think on occasions it's been her technicalities or her limits on that particular day have been exposed. However, I wouldn't put her in my top three favourites, even if I think you're right. Definitely, she could beat Iga. She's done it twice this year, and she may well do it again. But I would put her behind Rybakina. Even if Rybakina goes out in the second round, there's a chance that happens, or Rybakina just, she's had a start 4 or 5 months since Rome in terms of injuries and illnesses and form. But I think Rybakina could win 7 matches in a row on a hard court. She's very close to winning in Australia this year. So this is really recent evidence, super close. I don't think we have any major concerns about her nerve, at least at the evidence we've seen so far. And she's won a Grand Slam before. I think that certainly helps in terms of the argument as to who. So my point is this: if you said to me, who's more likely to get to the semi-finals, you could be right. It's 50-50, one or the other, draws, form, all sorts of things. Who's more likely to actually... Can I see Jessica Pegula winning the US Open? Would that be a surprise to me? It would be a pretty big surprise. I don't see it as big a surprise. And by the way, hard court form this year, what was it? Indian Wells, final, Miami win. No, Indian Wells win. She won in Indian Wells and got to the final, I think, in Miami. This is she
That's
beat
right.
Sabalenka. So
She lost to Petra in Miami.
yeah, right. So we've seen a lot of very, very good stuff in the last 15 months from her.
Yeah.
You're right. The last 15 days, no. But she could have been in that final and that would have been a competitive final against Pegula.
There's been moments, there has been for Jessica Pegula as well, but there has been moments for both Sabalenka and Rybakina against some lower ranked players where very recently, I mean, not over the course of the year, where they've both had amazing seasons, where they've had moments of doubt in the games, just gone a little bit. Pegula's still the player that gets to quarterfinals, semi-finals, pretty much every single tournament she plays, right? And if she gets drawn against Iga in a semi-final at the US Open, where maybe Iga's not even guaranteed to get there if there's a big, massive hitter on the other side of the net, she's missed consistency. She is probably going to get to the latter stages of the tournament. She's going to get another bite of the cherry. And the way she's playing against Iga Swiatek consistently says she has a chance at winning that match, higher than most probably will give her. For that reason, I can't take her out of the mix. I just can't. I feel like Elena Rybakina, Arina Sabalenka, not an absolute guarantee to get to the latter stages of the tournament. Pegula probably is. Her base level every single match is so high. Maybe I'm overrating her. Maybe I am. And on the other side of that coin, Coco Gauff, I'm going to retract that because I still am particularly inspired by her matchup against any of those players. Big hitters who can take advantage of the weaknesses in our game. Probably still not a big contender at the US Open for me, even if she's feeling really confident. So Pegula in the mix for me, John. I might revise that when it comes to official predictions day, but for now, just the way she's been playing, that's what I'm thinking.
You've surprised me a little bit by adding being as big on Pegula there, but actually you semi-answer my next question because I probably until now and probably still say that those three that I just highlighted are slightly ahead of the rest, and then there's a group which I would put Pegula in, but you probably put her into the top group of about 6 or 7, which I think we'd be surprised if they won the title, but probably wouldn't be surprised if they make the semis. I put Pegula in that category, but the other players that I put in that category would be Coco Gauff. I'm just trying to think who else I did it. Vondrousova is in that category. Completely no idea where she'll end up or how she'll get on, but a semi-final, I don't think it's beyond her. She's done okay since Wimbledon, or at least in the 3 or 4 matches that I've seen her play.
This is to win the tournament, right? Rather than
not to win the tournament. It's just. Listen, there's 3 players that I think, as I've already laid out, that I put in the winners circle more or less. That there's a very good argument you can make for each of those 3. I agree that there's doubts about all 3 as well. Pegula, I think you've made an interesting case for, but I would still put her in the next group where I'd be very surprised if they win. But a semi-final run is certainly within their grasp, especially with the right draw. Pegula's in that category for me, but also in that category is Coco Gauff. I put Bencic in that category, funny enough. I've not seen a lot from her, but she does seem to like this part of the year. And I think New York, has traditionally been her best slam. I just looked at the top 20 and I think there was this more. I'm just going to find them now that I have in this. Yeah, Krejcikova I put in this group. No idea. Kvitova, I guess, comes in this group. I think she got to the quarters last year.
Keys, maybe Keys. That would be quite surprising.
Keys in the group, but probably the gap between Keys and say Coco Gauff is probably smaller than the gap between say Coco Gauff and that 3 that we just highlighted. If that makes sense.
How about 2 of last year's semi-finalists, Garcia, Jabeur?
I did add Jabeur definitely, and I did add Garcia, but I haven't seen anything this year from Garcia that suggests it. But I did add her to the group that I was just writing down earlier, and I think that's where the group ended. You feel free to add Haddad Maia or Azarenka or Mukova to it, but and you've just thrown in Madison Keys there. One of the players, the highest ranked player that's out and hasn't even been mentioned in the conversation is Maria Sakkari. I think the draw would have to be extremely kind to put her in the semis.
Just so many uninspiring performances in latter stages of tournaments. Just being brutally honest.
I'm going to get my battery charged, but respond to what I've been saying.
Yeah, just saying Sakkari getting to a semi-final again would be very surprising for me. I want to throw Azarenka into the mix. I saw that from Matthew in the comments there as a surprising kind of semi-finalist, but somebody we can't really overlook. She loves the tournament. She obviously reached the final fairly recently. I even decided to put a little bet on her actually because her odds were so decent. I thought 66-1. That's not a crazy chance of happening. It could happen.
Azarenka, sorry.
Azarenka.
Yes, but 6-1, that's big.
They're good odds. I think they're pretty good odds, considering. Obviously, she's been to the final so recently. But I would definitely agree with John. There's nobody else that's like standing out a lot. If Danielle Collins is really back, do we want to totally rule her out? She can get the better of a lot of different players when she's on it. So Collins is somebody maybe to keep a little eye on. Other than that, I'm still scrolling down the rankings. There's nobody obvious that's standing out. Yeah, I don't want the list to go on for that much long. Maybe Andreeva. John, is this the time for her to break out?
Well, break out. I mean, it's been a year of breakouts for her, isn't it, in terms of obviously Madrid was the first one. Who did she beat in Madrid? Leylah Fernandez.
Mm-hmm.
I know she lost Adam Meyer and of course Adam Meyer and they get to the semi-finals of the French Open. Well, how did Andreeva get on? She had to qualify at the French Open and she did that. I think she beat the Colombian Osorio, I think, in her final match.
That's right.
It was a heavyweight qualifying match. I'm just trying to think, who did she lose to in Paris? I know she lost to Madison Keys at Wimbledon.
Yes, she did. We even watched a match of hers live. Actually, it was really good. She beat who was it? Ziyu Wong Ziyu. That's annoying me, John. I'm afraid I can't remember, but she did make the fourth round at Wimbledon, right? Was it as far as that? Was it as far as that?
I think it was the fourth. Yeah. And then Madison Keys lost to Sabalenka, I think, in the quarters.
It was Sabalenka in the quarters, yeah. And I've got the answer for you here. It was Coco Gauff. There is no shame in losing to Coco Gauff at the French Open. So, she definitely will go in as a proper dark horse. She's the kind of player that could trump a lot of game styles, but definitely prone to getting overpowered at this stage of her career. So if she does get a bad draw, obviously unseeded, then we might not see her go too far.
Are we going to see Emma Raducanu on a tennis court this year, by the way? Just one or two people asking in the chat. This year might be... I mean, she's back hitting softballs and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a Billie Jean King Cup appearance for her towards the end of the year.
I have no idea. I don't know, I'm afraid. I know the last time she played with Stuttgart back in April. That's a fair while ago now. I've got no idea how close she is to coming back, I'm afraid.
I have seen her on a practice court hitting softish balls anyway. So, we're still 3 months away, I think, from the Billie Jean King Cup. So that might be where her target is, or she might just say, I'll wait till January. Just one or two people asking in the chat. Kenin, she sort of showed a few flickers this year at various points just before going into Australia, remember, and then she lost, unfortunately, to Azarenka in the first round, and she beat Sabalenka in Rome. So there's been a few flickers of the... That is always
the match. Certainly, I know when you've been talking about it, John, you've been like, but she beat Sabalenka in Rome, and I don't know, I'm not that. I was never that big in that performance. It was solid, it was good, but as Sabalenka was absolutely dead after Madrid. Everything in our press conference pointed to her being exhausted, essentially. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to say for sure Kenin's going to do something big. The win against Coco Gauff I thought was pretty good. I know Coco obviously hasn't had the best year. Just remembered we watched that in the pub together, of course. I thought Ken played really well. Everything she was doing was really flashy. Not the performance of her career like Annabelle Croft did it, but it was very solid and had to come through the 3 rounds of qualifying, which was equally impressive against pretty tough players, Townsend being one of them. I actually don't think a quarterfinal run totally out of the blue is very out of the question. She just has to have a a pretty decent run. I think her level's been there. She's just dipped so many times as well. It's interesting because she's
playing, right? She's fit again at the moment. That's probably the other part of the question. I haven't heard anything to suggest she's not, but she probably has to go through qualifying.
Wimbledon was the last time she played. Is she playing qualifying here? I don't know. I've not seen her. No, but maybe I don't think so, John.
Then maybe there is an injury issue then I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
And therefore, US Open has to be a doubt. I wasn't aware of that. I know I barely remember hearing from her, but I wasn't sure if she went out in qualifying because she's not been getting wildcards to the best of my knowledge either. Kudermetova wasn't in that conversation that we just had about potential sort of semi-finalists in New York. One or two people might put her in that conversation, but don't know.
I don't know. She's had a lot of bizarre kind of losses. Not bizarre, but just uninspiring. Then the next day she'll serve really well, and it's a totally different story. But no, I'm not too big on her. I think she gets beaten by most players from the baseline at the moment, John. So unless she can really cover herself on serve, it's pretty much an uphill battle every time she's playing. Venus Williams, even, she'll serve well enough as well that actually could be a bit of a slog. It's tough to really be big on Kudermetova. I know you were for Wimbledon, but have you revised your thoughts on her since then, John? Or
I mean, I don't have anywhere near the level of optimism going into this tournament, but then I haven't seen much of her since Wimbledon. I did see her quite a bit in the build-up to Wimbledon, and that fed into my thoughts that she was going to have a good run there. But I think the other thing about Wimbledon was that there was one half of the draw that was looking a bit crazy in that. Yeah, I know none of us predicted, or very few of us predicted Von Duser to get to the final, but that draw was so lopsided that if you didn't think Swiatek was going to get to the final or win Wimbledon, and I didn't, then you're going to have to pick someone pretty random. And probably the least, this shows you how random it was. Probably the least random pick on that side of the draw was probably Donna Vekic. But that's still nuts in a way. It kind of shows you. And I went for Kudermetova. Other people may have gone for Pegula perhaps, or even Iga herself. But if you weren't picking Iga, you were going to have to go pretty left field. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.